can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, from Brooklyn. Hey, get any?
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
What's up, everybody? It's another episode of Coast to Coast. I am your host, Pags. We got Bo in the middle. We got StatGuy. We actually get to see him this time.
Yeah,
on the
right.
end,
That's what I was thinking. He's on camera. Weird.
Jay is not here today, so one day we'll have all four, being players all at one time. Just not today. What's up, guys? How was your weekend?
Fair, good. All right.
Yeah. No, it was a good weekend.
That sounds like somebody's crying about the Vikings picks.
Only one of them.
Only crying about one of the Vikings picks?
Yeah.
Listen, it could be worse. You could be a Falcons fan.
That's the team that's making me cry.
Why?
Well-
Because your quarterback's going to sit for 4 or 5 years, according to them?
That's the quarterback that I wanted.
Well, instead, you got what, Bo Nix?
McCarthy.
Oh,
McCarthy.
yeah.
And
I knew he was-
we traded 2 picks next year too to move up one spot to get him.
Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah. Great times.
I assume you didn't want Bo Nix, and that's why you had to go trade up to go get him.
I assume I don't care who we got as long as I didn't get McCarthy, but damn, I suck.
Yeah, because the Broncos got Knicks.
Yeah.
I know that nobody got our guy, and next thing you know, he winds up falling all the way to 22, which he may have not been real happy about. Everybody was telling me, like, wow, he looked miserable all the way up until the point that I got him to do an Eagles chant. I don't think he looked miserable when I saw him, but that's just me. The best cornerback in the draft thought that he should be picked faster than 22.
Yeah.
So, and I don't blame him. I'm glad he didn't have a chip on your shoulder. You know what I mean? Be like, hey, you should have been a top 15 pick at the very least.
Yeah,
It's
I mean
awesome.
the way that there was the run on offensive tackles and quarterbacks, it was going to be hard to be picked in that range anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, to think that 6 quarterbacks went in the top 10, I think that's got to be the most.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, it's
top
never
10,
happened.
top 15. Was it top 15 really?
Top 12, yeah.
Yeah, so ridiculous. I think that was absolutely ridiculous. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure any one of them is going to be any good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready to watch this Caleb Williams dumpster fire because he has a lot of nice weapons. So if he can stay upright, maybe he can even throw some passes to him.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a whole bunch of Bears fans with painted fingernails because they said real quarterbacks paint their nails.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Whatever you got to tell yourself. That's amazing. Glad that you got it all worked out.
At least they're accepting, and they'll be accepting until he starts getting smoked.
And that's going to be like, why did we get rid of, Fields?
Yep.
So,
yeah, the Raiders pick there was a little bit curious because it's not like they didn't have tight ends already. Because they already had like 3 solid tight ends on that roster.
called for now.
Yeah, right? Right? Yeah, I mean, you're just putting them out split.
Well, it's like Iowa. All only tight ends really, all good tight ends really only come from Iowa.
I mean, if nothing else, if you're having tight ends split out, they're definitely bigger than the corners that are going to cover them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's funny that you say that, Paul, because actually, I think offense was like 2/3 of the
Yeah, it was
draft.
mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you say this was all about defense. I think that there is a lot of undrafted free agents that got picked up that are going to wind up being on the defensive side in the Hall of Fame after this. You know, and I'm not saying, I think when we look back at it 20 years from now or, somewhere in that neighborhood,
Mhm.
you're going to find a lot of like anybody who might be in the conversation for Hall of Fame. I'm going to be willing to bet that half of those names on the defensive side were undrafted free agents.
Sure. I could see that based on the run of offensive players. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I mean,
Gonna have those James Harrisons out there.
yeah, I mean, even Hollis Thomas. Hollis Thomas was the same way. Undrafted, was able to go that. The Trotter Jr. pickup, I think it makes for a great story. I, assume that he will be playing on the special teams and maybe get out on the field a little bit. He's got to get some meat on his bones, I think. He's got to get a little bit bigger. And we'll see. We'll see. I think right now it was more of a story than anything else. Feel good story. That 26 years almost to the day, his father was drafted by the Eagles, and he was drafted by the Eagles, and in all of that time, the Cowboys have not made it to an NFC Championship game. So,
Signing Ezekiel Elliott back is definitely not going to help him either.
Mm-hmm. No,
well,
I did laugh a fair amount when I saw that signing. I was like, oh, we're not going to draft a running back. We're going to get a guy that hasn't been good in years. Cool.
hey,
You're all in. You're all in on blowing this thing up next year. That's what I'm saying.
well, it's been a long time since the Eagles picked a number 1 and number 2 cornerback, first round, second round cornerback. It was Lito Shepherd and Sheldon Brown the last time that occurred. Those guys were pretty good, actually, from what I remember. Lito Shepherd was really good. Sheldon Brown wasn't great, but he was definitely serviceable. Do you think that Cooper DeJean fell in the draft because he's white?
Not necessarily. I think he fell more so in the draft because teams that should have taken him elected to go with different players. And I kind of look at the Green Bay Packers, for example. Green Bay Packers needed safety help alongside Xavier McKinney. Cooper DeJean was sitting there for them at 25, 26 whenever they picked. And instead they went with offensive tackle James Morgan, who, nothing against James Morgan, he's a very solid offensive guard, offensive tackle, but he would have been sitting there when the Packers picked at 40 in the second round. So if Morgan really was your guy that you wanted, you could have essentially moved up from like 40 maybe to 34, 35 to take him in the second round and still gotten Cooper DeJean in the first round, because I thought with DeJean still sitting there around 24, 25, I firmly expected the Packers to either take him at 25 or try to trade up to maybe that 23 range to make sure no one else got him first.
Well, nobody got him until pick number 40, where the Eagles traded up for him because the Eagles really wanted him. Didn't expect him to fall that far. Thought he was going to be gone.
Mm-hmm.
I almost feel like in those two circumstances, the first pick, having him fall to us, having Cooper fall to us, and then really having Jeremiah Trotter fall to us. We had to trade up to get him. But truth of the matter is, we could have got him with the 151 pick.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we didn't was like, oh, we got this guy. And, he did make 9 trades that day. He took our picks and says, yeah, let's trade back. He made a 4th-round pick, a 3rd-round pick. That's not easy to do, actually.
Hmm.
To gain a day, it's typically not something that you see happen. Um, so lots of trades going on and stuff like that. And then, of course, he makes a trade to trade up for Jeremiah Trotter. So I, yeah, I feel like that the other teams just knew what the Eagles were going to draft and decided to stay away. Thoughts?
No, I mean, I think you guys had one of the better drafts.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, some of the guys that fell to you, I was surprised. I was definitely surprised on that. But my Hawks actually had a fairly decent draft as well. I'd probably give them like a B, right? Like they definitely drafted for need, right? Getting a defensive tackle, a guard, a linebacker, tight end, like all of those things. And then you look at they pick up a couple of corners as some depth pieces. The first one they picked up, Nima Pritchett, could be a key piece in the return game because he was a returner. So I think that kind of aided him in being there. You get a depth piece at corner. He's a 5th round pickup. Yeah, 5th round. So I mean, it's not like you're pressured to make him go play because you already have 2 starting corners anyway. So now you can use him as like a nickel corner type of setup, or you can primarily use him in that special teams game. So I mean, I liked what they did. I did see some of the draft grades for the Hawks. They got barbecued, but it's funny. Some of those gradings, they clearly go on best available as opposed to what it is your team needs, right? And in this case, the Seahawks had some very real needs they had to address.
So, and you give them, you said a B?
Yeah, I gave them a B. Because like their first couple picks, awesome, right? They get probably the best defensive tackle on the board. And then with their 3rd round pick, they probably got the best true guard on the board, right? So after that, then it's just later round picks, right? So because from there, it was a couple of 4ths, and then you had a string of 6th rounders and the 1 5th. So I mean, it's not like they had a ton of high picks or anything. But the first 2, I thought they killed it. And then the last ones were kind of, they look like depth pieces more than anything. So, yeah, like a B plus would be kind of where I'm at.
Gotcha. And for your Vikings,
I give him a C minus.
C minus.
And I mainly say that because they went from having 8 picks in the 2025 NFL draft down to 3 because of the 2 trades they made. Trading for McCarthy to me just made no sense, especially when you went from 11 to 10. You knew the Jets weren't going to take him at 10. So there was no reason you should have gave up 2 picks in next year's draft for a guy you were moving up 1 spot for. If your fear was that Denver was going to trade up and do it, then you should have traded from 11 to 8 where Atlanta was picking Penix, and then kind of made things interesting to see if you were going to go with Penix and McCarthy. So that pick to me still doesn't make sense what you gave up to get him. But the one trade I was fine with was trading for Dallas Turner. The fact that Dallas Turner fell to number 17, I'm still trying to figure that one out. So at least to give up what they gave up for Dallas Turner, I'm okay with, just because he was viewed as a top 10 talent who was, according to most mock drafts, was kind of sitting in that 6 to 8 range, depending on which one you looked at. A lot of people had him going number 8 to Atlanta. So for him to fall to 17, I was happy with that. But I think they gave up too much for what they got. And now with only 3 picks in next year's draft, I think they have a 1st rounder, a 2nd rounder, and then a 6th rounder. If they don't hit whoever they're drafting in the 1st and 2nd round, they're going to have a horrendous draft again next year.
I could see that.
Well, interestingly enough, ESPN gives your Minnesota Vikings a B plus.
Because everyone's so high on JJ McCarthy for whatever freaking reason they are. I still don't get it. I don't get it.
They got an A minus for that.
He's the most unproven quarterback of the big six that were drafted, and yet he seems to have more hype and more upside than Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and any of these other guys. And I just don't understand why.
Yeah. And then to answer Rob's questions here, so on Chris Haynes, I liked that pickup. Going into it, if you remember, I was talking about us needing interior offensive line, defensive tackle, defensive edge, right? And so our first two picks are defensive tackle and a true offensive guard. He did play some tackle, though, so if he has to get bumped out to the tackle position, he's versatile in that way. And then as far as AJ, we needed depth at tight end because outside of Fant, we let them all go. So we had Noah Fant as our entire tight end room. So it was smart of them to go get somebody.
And what did you give your rating for their draft?
For the Hawks?
Yeah.
A B plus. Yeah.
So ESPN or the NFL Network or NFL gives them an A.
Okay. Yeah.
They defensive tackle, offensive guard, linebacker, tight end, defensive back, offensive tackle, defensive back, offensive tackle. So, and you definitely tried to get some guys in there on your offensive line, to be able to protect some of that. I'm not exactly sure how good Byron Murphy is, but he was, a tackle on that Texas team. That Texas team went to lost in the playoffs, correct?
Correct.
So,
it's the corners that I'm curious about. Like one of them I get because you can use him as a returner, and you need that kind of flexible guy. The other 6th round corner, basically they got 2 corners out of Auburn, which is kind of strange. But I don't know a ton about the second corner, but at the same time, I feel like there was other needs they could have used. Now, maybe that was a best player available type of pick. Cause again, you are at the 192nd pick, right? You're in the 6th round. At that point, you may not necessarily be going for need because once you're that far down in the draft, they're not generally starters, right? So maybe that was just, hey, we want a depth piece at corner, something we can move around, maybe somebody we pop into dime packages, stuff like that.
There are 3 teams too that I think could end up with maybe the steal of the draft too, in my opinion.
Go ahead.
And Rob, you're right. I am a tough grader. You gotta really be doing something for me to give you an A+ for sure.
Yeah, that's what it is. And Atlanta was blocking him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a shame. Yeah, that coach is going to wind up getting fired. That GM is going to get fired. That told him that he has no idea what he's doing. Yeah, that pick kind of.
Well, how are you calling Cousins while you're on the clock?
Yeah,
like you can't give him the courtesy heads up. Like, come on, man. You just signed him to $100+ million deal for 4 years. You're not going to give him a heads up. You're climbing to go get a guy. Like,
hey. That's why they're the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah, they did a wonderful job.
I mean, if you're giving a quarterback that much money, it makes you think you're in win now mode, right?
The only thing that I can think of at this point is maybe they don't think Cousins is going to be ready for week 1 because of how late he tore the Achilles and his age and everything.
Yeah,
like
he's going to. I heard he's not playing until week 8.
But even at that, so you start Michael Penix the first 8 games, and let's just say he plays well. I'm not going to say like undefeated or anything like that, but let's just say he goes like 5-3 over those first 8 games.
He stays in, and Cousins probably is not playing the rest of that first year. So then what do you do with year 2 of Cousins' contract? Do you just bench Penix or what do you do at that point? Yeah, you just eat it, right?
That is why I think that is going to be the dumbest move of the draft, just because I understand that you wanted something behind Cousins for this situation, but then go and get a free agent quarterback on a 1-year deal that you're not tied to long term, because now you run into a situation where if Penix does succeed and have a good rookie year, you have to answer that question the next 3 years. Is Cousins our guy or is Penix our guy? And if you don't go with Penix, then everyone's going to be like, why did you draft him at number 8 if you're not going with him? And if you don't start Cousins, it's like, why did you sign this guy to a 4-year deal if you're not playing him?
Yeah, because
Well,
I mean, obviously you didn't know Penix was still going to be there at your pick, right? So I mean, you do have to have some of that planned. But if your goal was to go get Penix or one of those top guys, then why wouldn't you have signed a guy like Drew Lock, who was cheap, showed he can play? Right?
Jameis Winston, any of those
Jameis
guys.
Winston, yeah, like any of those guys. Like Winston, I always have a hard time with because he's a turnover machine. But you know, one of those Drew Lock, Sam Darnold, like you know, you can get decent quarterback play out of. Not great, you can, you know, but if you're going to go get a rookie, then you know you can make that work. I mean, you know, it's similar to what the Vikings ultimately did, right?
Yeah, 9 out of 10 times, if you're drafting a quarterback in the top 10, he's not sitting for more than a year. And
Yeah,
now you have the Falcons GM coming out with that comment the other day saying that Michael Penix might be sitting 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years.
So what the hell did you do drafting a guy that you might not play in your viewpoint?
Not just that, but you drafted one of the older guys coming out. So he's going to be almost 30 before you give him meaningful snaps based on that scenario. That makes absolutely no sense.
That's why I said I can see this possibly being one of those situations where Atlanta might ultimately be using him as trade bait.
I think actually the opposite way.
Where
you're hoping to be able to use Cousins as trade bait.
Well, yeah, like either or though. Like you have Penix, where if somebody gets hurt and a team wants a younger quarterback, they can be like, "Hey, you got Penix. You're not going to be using him for a while. Let's trade for Penix," or vice versa. Let's just say Minnesota wants Cousins back. Just out of if they go with McCarthy next year and all of a sudden something happens to McCarthy and he gets hurt, Minnesota wants Cousins back. There's your leverage. I'll trade for Cousins. He's still under contract. We'll bring him back.
Either that, or they're about getting ready to eat a whole lot of contract because they got to move off Cousins because nobody's going to pick up all of his contract because they don't have to.
Exactly.
Right. Well, no, he would fall into the dead cap.
No, exactly.
Scenario. So
yeah.
Now, I mean, Atlanta could do it because they have a rookie quarterback. So in the scheme of things, relatively cheap. But it would be like you were paying Penix if you moved on from Cousins.
The three teams that I think had got the biggest steal in the draft, though, I think the Jets getting Jordan Travis as late as they did could turn out to be a huge steal because he's going to be sitting behind Rodgers for 2 years. Granted, Rodgers has always been known to not really be the most helpful when it comes to younger quarterbacks, but Jordan Love looked pretty good his first year without Rodgers there. So who's to say that Jordan Travis isn't going to sit in New York for 2 years and pick something up? Because you and I talked about this on Friday, Bo, that had Jordan Travis not gotten hurt, he's probably a round 2 quarterback. So if you're getting a potential round 2 quarterback in round 6, you're at least setting your franchise up for long-term success after that, as long as he comes back healthy enough from his injury. Mm-hmm. Another team that I think got a good steal was the Buccaneers getting Jalen McMillan in the 3rd round, the wide receiver out of Washington, because for all the talk that Rome Odunze got last year, Jalen McMillan was also a 1,200-yard receiver at Washington. He also had 10 touchdowns, and now you're pairing him with Mike Evans. It gives Baker Mayfield now 2 legitimate wide receiver options to throw to as opposed to 1, and both of them kind of do the same thing. They can both stretch the field, and they're also both possession wide receivers. And then the other one is Kansas City getting the speedster, with Buffalo trading basically 28 to 32 and then trading out again. As long as his hands hold up and he can prove that he catches the football, having Patrick Mahomes throw that man a deep ball is going to be fun to watch.
He's going to need them sticky gloves.
Yeah, because that's his problem. He can't catch, right?
Yeah. He's the dude from the Replacements. He's fast, but they got to put the stickum on there.
Yeah, exactly. He's Clifford Franklin.
That's right.
The ball's like cold. I'm the only one catching it. I'm the only one coming down with it.
Yeah, but if he learns how to catch the ball, and you give basically a bigger version of Tyreek Hill,
sure,
Patrick Mahomes could have fun with that.
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah, I mean, if he can consistently catch, that's a very real weapon. Because the speed is no joke.
So here was something that kind of surprised me. as I'm looking at the draft and I'm looking at all the draft picks, and Arizona was one of the teams that had like 1,000 picks.
Yes.
Legitimately.
Right.
Yeah, no lie.
They drafted the entire team.
Just about. But no, they drafted so all the way up to their first pick on Saturday, which is pick number 104, because they stopped the third round at, I think it was 100. I think there were only four compensatory picks for
Mm.
the third round, so they think it stopped at 100. Pick
Yep.
number 104, they picked a defensive back. Out of the top 100 picks, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 picks on the top 104.
Hmm.
3 D backs. And they picked up another one for good measure in the seventh round.
Mhm.
Yeah.
4 of them. Yeah, they probably got the best wide receiver in the draft.
Yep.
Maybe his quarterback will read the playbook and actually do some studying and actually realize how to use them.
They tricked him. They just put the playbook in a Madden game for him.
That's probably the way to do it, actually, and just have him play that way. So, um, the Falcons. It has all the grades. I'm on the NFL site looking at all the grades.
Mm.
The Falcons have been the lowest grade as of yet, with a C plus.
And I guarantee a lot of that probably circles around them making the one dumb decision at number 8.
Well, that and a couple of dumb decisions that they didn't like for day 2 either.
For a team that's been dead last in the NFL in sacks the last 3 years, they have like 81 sacks total the last 3 years, which is like 25 less than the next lowest team. Dallas Turner was sitting there for you at number 8, that you could have immediately put on your defense. He would have immediately been a 9 or 10 sack guy on your defense.
Yep.
But you went with a quarterback who you don't actually need.
Right. But then they went with the guy with the hardest name to say in the second round.
Yep.
Rukarororo.
That was the did you watch the ESPN? Oh, you were there, but Bo, did you watch the ESPN broadcast or the NFL Network broadcast?
What did I watch? I
It
watched
was on NFL Network. 3 different analysts tried to say his name, and it all came out 3 different times. So I have no idea even how to say it.
that was day 2 though. I didn't have the sound on.
Yeah, 3. I think Daniel Jeremiah, Rich Eisen, and the other person all tried to say his name. It all came out 3 different ways. So I don't even know
awesome.
how we're supposed to pronounce it at this point anymore.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody who's got a speech impediment and trying to sound like a dog whining.
They basically said that Michael Penix was the mystery wagon that got drafted in the first round, and then that guy was Scooby-Doo, basically talking like, "Roo, roo, roo, roo."
Yeah, that's pretty good. Rukarororo. So
Yeah. So we went to the Seahawks watch party, right? And so Rob came with me, and we're sitting at this table, and this kid and his mom were sitting across from us, and we're all speculating, like he says there in his comment, who they're going to take, right? Because they're at 8. There was a lot of options. And so then the kid that was across from us, he's like, oh, yeah, no, I think they're going to take Penix. And we're like, why? Like, why would you do that? And then sure enough, Penix rolls across the screen. We're like, there's no way. But yeah, he was, I don't think he was 6. I think he was like 10 or something, but still.
how did the Pat McAfee show get in trouble at the draft? During the draft?
They got in trouble?
I didn't know.
Oh.
I was at the draft. I couldn't tell you. I know that
I mean, it would
Thursday,
make sense. He seems to get in
Thursday,
trouble.
I had a really good video with the Eagles' first round draft pick.
Yep.
That was a good video for me. And then also, I was told I was on Good Day or Good Morning Football.
Oh, okay.
With
Awesome.
Kyle Brandt.
Yeah.
Kyle comes up to me and he asked me, he's like, "Hey, I want you to say something about the Giants draft pick." So he does like a mini interview with me, and I'm like, "Okay." Yeah, I think they're going to probably go with J.J. McCarthy because, what else are you going to do to screw up pick six? You're going to pick another quarterback and go from pick six Daniel Jones to pick six McCarthy, and then they picked Neighbors.
Yeah.
And I was like, see, they screwed it up again. Now they got nobody to throw them that ball.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I think Bo and I are kind of on the same page about this. Neither one of us are going to be surprised if Drew Lock is that starter.
I think he
before-
could. I think he
before
could
the season is
absolutely
over.
beat Daniel Jones out.
I think Daniel Jones by default starts week 1 because of that contract. But if he struggles within the first month of the season, I don't think that it's going to take long for Brian Dable to pull the plug and go with Drew Lock.
I don't know, man. That presser where he's just like, I'm not sure if that's your guy. I'm not sure if he looked bewildered just sitting there. I'm not sure I feel confident because you saw that look a lot on his face when he was, getting back up off the ground after getting sacked 10, 11 times during a game.
I think, and that's
Daniel Jones.
I think that's the only reason too. I would probably give Daniel Jones a slight edge is because he can at least run a little bit. He's actually a better runner than what people give him credit for. Versus Drew Lock.
That's the one thing he's got going for him.
Yeah, versus Drew Lock.
As long as he doesn't have to run over the 19-yard line, that 19-yard line likes to trip him up sometimes.
Versus Drew Lock
monsters are no joke.
Versus Drew Lock is not somebody that's going to run. He's more that pocket passer where he stands in the pocket and gets rid of it, and that's kind of that's the main reason outside of the contract that I think Daniel Jones gets that job week 1 because the Giants' offensive line is not great. So they are going to have a lot of pressure on that quarterback, and they need at least someone that can avoid pressure, which Daniel Jones can at least give them that element yet.
I think he probably does get the start only because I'm kind of convinced that Dable wants Daniel Jones to die.
I mean, do you trust him though? Because do you remember what happened last year? Who Brian Dable actually wanted in New York before they signed Daniel Jones? He wanted Trubisky.
Yeah, that seems like a Dable thing.
Because of how Trubisky was in Buffalo behind Josh Allen. Like Brian Dable praised Mitchell Trubisky a ton. Like he praised him for the way he handled the situation in Chicago, for the way he kind of came into Buffalo, basically left Chicago in the past and kind of focused on Buffalo as like a fresh start to his career, willing to learn a lot of things. And granted, he didn't see a ton of game action because Josh Allen has never hurt. But when Mitch Trubisky played in Buffalo, he actually looked really good in the 5 games that he had game action under Brian Dable. And so when Dable took the Giants job, knowing that Daniel Jones was in that final year of his contract, a lot of people were like, the next piece to follow was going to be Mitchell Trubisky coming to the Giants on like a short 2-year deal and then going from there.
Well, if with any luck, maybe that can still happen because that would be hilarious to watch.
I'm not going to be surprised if he does, especially now that Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are both in Pittsburgh where Trubisky was. I'm not going to be shocked at all if Daniel Jones ends up losing that starting job to Drew Lock and then Trubisky ends up going there.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be till next year. Where's Trubisky at this year?
I think he's a free agent. He got cut from Pittsburgh.
I thought someone picked him up.
I don't know. Let's find out, shall we?
It's Google's.
Because I know he was Pittsburgh's backup, and I thought he was the backup even after they got what's his name?
Current team is the Buffalo Bills.
Oh yeah, Bills
re-signed him. That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, the Bills re-signed him to a 1-year deal.
Yep. Yeah, no, I knew he got picked up. I couldn't remember where he went, but yeah, back to the Bills. That's right.
So, and I'm sure he'll get plenty of opportunity to play there. Josh Allen stinks.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, the way Dable kept leaving Daniel Jones in when they were down by a lot and he's getting just absolutely murdered behind that line, rather than actually just letting one of his backups go in, understanding the situation of let's not, kill our quarterback. They just left him out there to get absolutely killed the entire time. And then, ultimately gets hurt a couple of times. So
right.
That neck injury, I thought could have been a season ending deal.
That's the old school approach where it's like, I'm going to teach this GM a thing or two about my quarterback. Here, go out there and get your ass kicked.
That's right.
Well, I I don't know. Do you think of another team that actually had a bad draft, worse than
If
Atlanta?
Jay was here, I would say the Dallas Cowboys, who probably got an F, but they probably would never give him an F on the draft recap.
They'd
No,
never give him an F, but man, it was not a great draft.
They actually gave him an A minus here, which really
That is insane.
For what? Making trades?
they gave the Browns also a C plus, by the way. And
Well,
gave them
what's
a
the lowest
D.
grade? Because you're looking at NFL.
Yeah,
So their lowest grade is going to be a C then, right?
a C plus. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can't go off of their grading because their grading is like it's almost like they're protecting their brand. They're like, everybody was great. Everyone gets a trophy. Yay. Good job, guys.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm trying to see if they gave anybody. I mean, the lowest grade that I've seen even given on a day was a D, and that was to Cleveland. Yeah.
Yeah. So I never put a lot of stock in the ones that are everybody was great.
Well, like I said, the NFL gave him an A minus for. They even gave Washington an A, so that's ridiculous.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like that one, that was grading on a curve, and the curve was based on somebody that didn't turn in the homework. So everybody got an
A. Right. So yeah, they got all right. There you go. They got A minus for the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean,
And
so there were elements that I liked, right? Like, I mean, picking up an offensive tackle made sense. Getting another D end, sure. Some more O line, like that's all fine. But then you don't get a running back. You don't add any weapons. I mean, based on what it is they picked, you're not getting better, right? Like when you look at your division now, you are a clear-cut second team in this division. Like this doesn't look like a team that can battle for the division win. This looks like what will probably be a decent team, right? They'll be all right. This is like maybe it's like a 9 or 10 win team.
maybe.
Yeah.
I think if they come out slow, they'll implode. The implosion I thought last year never came.
Yeah.
Till the end of the season. This year it'll come. I think it's just a matter of time before they blow up. So here I'm going to say again, they gave the Cleveland Browns a C plus because they gave them a D for the day one grade by picking. Well, they didn't have a first round pick, so how do you give them a D?
Because some people felt that they should have traded back in because they had a lot of I think day 3 picks that they could have packaged up to even move up to round 2 or even like a late round 1. And there was like positions of need that were kind of sitting in that 26 to 32 range that Cleveland needed, that they thought Cleveland was going to trade up into that spot.
Got ya. Well, they didn't, so I guess that's why they get a D.
That's right. Getting
It's
fired.
interesting. Day 2 and day 3. Day 2, they picked 2 guys. They got a defensive tackle and an offensive guard from Michigan, defensive tackle from Ohio State, and the offensive guard from Michigan. So, interestingly enough, those guys went against each other. So, why not take both of them?
Right.
And then wide receiver, linebacker, defensive back, and defensive tackle. So, I mean, I don't think it's that bad of a draft for them.
No, yeah, the one that I'm looking at right now has the Cowboys at a C minus.
Yeah, that seems more accurate.
And they basically said that the Tyler Guyton draft at 29 and the Cooper Beebe pick in round 3 were the only reasons why they did not get a B. Or it did not get a D, sorry. Not get a D, because Tyler Guyton's going to be a starter week 1 at tackle, and then Cooper Beebe is another offensive lineman that's going to be a good rotational piece for that team. For those 2 reasons are the only reason why they did not get a D.
Huh.
Yeah.
But they didn't like anybody else.
Some of the picks they said were players they could have had. The guy that they took in the second round was a 4th round talent that they felt was a reach. And then when you get to day 3, it becomes kind of best player available, which it is what it is. But there was also positions of need that were available when the Cowboys picked in rounds 4, 5, and 6 that they didn't address, and they took other pieces.
Got ya. Well, what does it say about the Eagles on yours?
They got an A.
Yeah,
Yes.
just about every
They
one I've seen.
basically said for the Eagles that as much as the offense struggled last year, the biggest downfall for the team was the secondary. So what did the Eagles do? They got 2 of the 3 best cornerbacks with round 1, 2.
Exactly.
Right.
They basically said the Eagles could have traded the rest of their picks from that day on, and they would have still had a B+ because of those 2 picks.
Got ya. Okay. I like that. And they're right because they tried to. They tried to trade all their picks afterwards.
And then the one I looked at gave Seattle a B+ and gave Minnesota a C, basically saying Minnesota potentially has the quarterback of the future in McCarthy. They added arguably the best edge rusher in the class in Dallas Turner, but did they mortgage the future too much to make those trades?
I would say yes.
Yeah. So you wrote this, huh?
No, I
This
was
is yours.
no, I was on Pro Football Focus. That's the one thing that I actually never go to like ESPN or NFL Network or CBS to look at any draft grades. I always go to Pro Football Focus.
I gotcha.
I am. I was just saying, it sounds more like something you would have wrote.
Yeah, going
I'll
to
take
NFL
credit.
is always funny because they are very kind.
And I think for the NFL they have to be just because you don't ever want to criticize like a rookie before you see him play.
Well, not just that, but you're protecting your
Yeah.
brand. You're not going to
Versus-
say your players suck.
Yeah, versus Pro Football Focus, they dive into a lot more of the analytics than the NFL does because they work with like fantasy football stuff. They work with like the actual offensive lineman grades where you're looking at how many pancakes they've had, how many pressures they've allowed, how many hits on the quarterback like they've allowed. So they dive into it a lot more detail. So they kind of can critique it a little more because they focus on a lot more of the smaller things that the NFL doesn't look at.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Yeah, the Pat McAfee show broke NFL rules during the 2024 NFL draft.
Shocker.
Does that surprise you? It's Pat McAfee.
Yeah,
Of
exactly.
course. Let's see, what rules did he
I
break?
was gonna say does it say what he actually broke?
Some tips. Since tips are sometimes spoiled on social media, the NFL instructs its broadcasting partners not to reveal picks during the NFL draft. On Thursday night during Pat McAfee's NFL draft show, a number of picks were tipped. Feed featured his show Tipped Picks. With the news that Miami would get the number 21 overall pick, McAfee's show declared right away that he would guess the Dolphins selection, and his co-host then gave the audience some hints, then pointed to Penn State edge rusher Chop Robinson.
Yeah. Speaking of that, now that you brought his name up, that's another player that I'm surprised fell as far as he fell.
Chop.
Yeah, Chop Robinson.
Does it not seem a little ridiculous that there was a guy named Chop and a guy named Kool-Aid?
And
Yep.
Yeah, but you can't help your last name. You can help a first name.
Chop's real name is actually Pork Chop on his birth certificate. So the fact that he changed it to Chop kind of got the impression like, no, I don't want to be called Pork Chop the rest of my life, so I'm just going with Chop.
Yeah.
The
I would not want to be called Pork Chop.
Yeah, the reason why he fell so far was because he didn't have a lot of individual production this past season at Penn State. But that Penn State defense as a whole was like really good, where they had like 4 or 5 guys that were kind of getting equal production across the board. If he would have had like more individual production this year, he probably would have been a top 10, top 15 pick because Chop Robinson from a combine side of things was an athletic freak.
Yep. What did you guys think of Alt going as high as he did?
No surprise.
Yeah.
I mean,
I thought you could have got him a couple picks later still.
It was Jim Harbaugh, though, and Jim Harbaugh, when they were asking what kind of weapons they were going to give Justin Herbert, he's like, I view offensive linemen as offensive weapons. So you knew he was going to go with an offensive tackle at number 5. It was just a matter of, are you going to go with Joe Alt or are you going to go with that Ole Fashanu from Penn State?
Yeah, and he ended up going what, like 11, 10,
He
11?
went 11 to the Jets. Yeah, that was the Vikings trade with the Jets.
Yeah, so I mean, that's why I say is like you could have traded back a little bit, got a couple extra picks.
You could have.
Someone would have taken that 5th overall spot.
I think you could have, but the problem was you had J.C. Latham go 7 to Tennessee.
Sure.
If Harbaugh would have traded back, it depends on how far back he would have traded, because then you have a chance of not getting Alt if you trade back.
True, but I mean, those top 3 tackles were, I mean, all money picks.
Yeah.
I mean,
5 through 11 is when those tackles went. So if he would have, like, let's just say Minnesota would have traded into 5 to get McCarthy.
sure. Yeah, you can still get.
And then Denver all of a sudden wants Bo Nix, and then they trade from 12 to maybe 11. Is Joe Alt going to be there at 12, 13?
No, but one of those top 3 might have been.
That I agree, but I think that's kind of where Harbaugh was kind of thinking, where it's like, we can take him now at 5, or if we trade back, do we risk not getting him? I think for him it was too big of a risk, just because yes, Justin Herbert still needs more weapons, but the dude also needs protection because he was on his ass a lot last year.
Yeah, especially towards the end of the year.
So they kind of just looked at it from that situation. Like, I'd rather address the tackle spot now with Joe Alt to at least protect that side of my investment.
Yeah.
So as I'm sitting here and I'm looking at some of the things. Although Pat McAfee wound up getting in trouble, the other thing that wound up coming from the Pat McAfee show was something that I have been saying for a couple of years now, that the NFL is looking to go to an 18-game schedule with 2 bye weeks and push everything back 1 week so that they would be able to have the Super Bowl on the same weekend as President's Day. And I've been saying that for years. I knew that this was the NFL's plan. I said, not only that, but you're going to see that every team in the process of this is going to wind up playing an overseas game, so that every team is going to wind up having 9 home games and the 10th game being overseas or something like that. Like 8 home games and the 9th game being overseas.
Yeah. No, I can see that. Absolutely.
So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how this all plays out in the mix. But that's coming. It's coming.
Well, yeah, I mean, because he essentially said he just doesn't like the preseason at all, right?
Well, it's becoming less and less worthwhile to even have.
It's because of how teams are kind of treating the preseason now.
Yeah.
You used to have and this isn't even that long ago, but you used to have basically first preseason game, your starters would play the first series.
Exactly.
Just to kind of get out there, get some reps under their belt and be done.
Yep.
Preseason week 2, you'd probably see your starters play the first quarter.
At most, usually is like 2 or 3 series, maybe.
And then this third preseason game, which they always consider the dress rehearsal back when you had like that 4-game schedule, that's where your starters played the entire first half, and even some of them played into the second half.
Yeah, it's usually the first drive in the second half.
And then the last preseason game, nobody started. It was literally just all your practice squad players trying to make that final roster cut or whatever. And now you look at how the preseason is over 3 weeks now. Week 1, 90% of starters don't even take a snap. Second week of the preseason, the starters might even be in there for 1 series. And then that last game of the preseason, the starters usually don't even play the first half. It might be the first quarter at the most. So now you're seeing less and less starters play in the preseason. So it's getting to the point now where it's like, why even have it if none of these guys are even going through the reps anyways? It's just lost money on our end for TV because no one's going to watch a preseason game that's all practice squad players. No,
and I mean, the worst part about it is it means your first couple weeks of the season are now preseason games because we saw that at the beginning of last year. Offensive line play was horrendous to start the year because half of those guys didn't practice, right? Like they didn't come out during any of those preseason games, and it showed. I mean, it's why you saw multiple games with double-digit sacks. You're just like, okay, like this is horrible.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. The first 4 games become preseason. I said it. I've said it for the last couple of years. That's the way it's been, because how do you risk losing a player who you need to play legitimate games in a fake game?
Yeah, I mean, so there's two ways to look at it though, because if you lose a guy in a preseason game, week 1, you probably have him back. I mean, unless it's season ending or whatever, right? But like in your normal injury, you're going to have him back week 1, week 2, right? If you have a guy go down week 1, you miss him for half the year.
Yep.
I
If
mean,
you have a guy go down in week 3, the preseason chances are you're pupping him, which puts him out till week 6.
Sure. But now none of those guys are even playing. So they come out, their first real reps are game speed, right? Because it's not like now you're going up against guys that are going to be working at target next week. You're going up against everybody else's number ones, right? So you're going from 0 to 100. And, these injuries now you're missing half the season because of these injuries. So I'm not a huge fan, but I mean, again, some of that is also you're not allowed to hit in practice. You're barely allowed to really practice anymore. Like it's just kind of all it does is delay when the injuries happen. And it used to be they happened early enough that you were back in time for the season or you missed a week or two. And now an injury is week 1, week 2, and you're missing half the season. So I'm not a huge fan of it. I get why they want to get rid of it, but I like seeing the regular season be pro football, not let's work the kinks out.
And I have another question for you guys, and I was actually talking about this the other day with somebody, and I kind of want your opinion on this. So when it comes to the Super Bowl, it's typically the same 6 or 7 cities that always get the Super Bowl, with maybe a couple other like cities mixed in, like when New York got it and when Minnesota got it. But otherwise, it's typically the same 6 or 7 cities that always get it. What are your thoughts on having the Super Bowl go back to markets that used to have a team, such as San Diego, who used to have the Super Bowl a lot when the Chargers were there, bringing the Super Bowl to potentially the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, which has already shown they have a great football following for the spring league with the Brahmas, bringing the Super Bowl to St. Louis because of what the Battlehawks have shown for the UFL, or my other big thing, which I think would really help them in terms of revenue. Why not bring it to college stadiums? Bryant-Denny Stadium in Alabama, Tiger Stadium in LSU, all these college stadiums that hold 100 to 105,000 people. Most Super Bowls, you're getting, 75,000 people in a Super Bowl because that's what an NFL stadium holds. Why not bring it to like a college stadium, like even Austin, Texas, where the Texas Longhorns play? Their stadium holds 86,000. Gator Stadium holds 89,000. Bryant-Denny Stadium, where Alabama plays, holds 102, 103. Tiger Stadium holds 98,000. Not only are you bringing the Super Bowl to markets that don't have an NFL team, but you're potentially adding 25,000 more fans for that Super Bowl, which brings you more money.
But does it? And the reason why I say that is, first off, you don't have the same type of suites at a college stadium that you do at a pro stadium. And that's where they're going to make a lot more money in those things than putting just butts in the stadium. And I think that's part of it. Bringing it back to St. Louis because the Battlehawks have actually got a little bit of show. And the reason why that St. Louis is going to those games now is because the tickets for those things are cheap.
Yeah.
You can get in there cheap. That's why they go. If they were really a football town, the Rams would still be there. The problem is that they didn't want to pay the ticket prices, so you had a half-empty stadium there in St.
But
Louis.
you're not going to have a problem with that for the Super Bowl, though.
Yeah.
Yep. But that's the reason why. That's the reason why the Super Bowl can't go there.
Do you think San Diego or San Antonio would be a good fit though? San Diego used to have a Super Bowl like every 5 years, it seems.
Yeah, but the reason why they left was because of the outdated stadium. Yeah. So
that and the college stadium thing doesn't generally work because they don't have the exhibition centers that all of these other big stadiums have for all the other events that happen around the Super Bowl.
I mean, depending on what city it's in, though. Like, if you brought it to Austin, Texas would have plenty of amenities where you could do media row. because it's a big metropolitan city that's over 1 million people. You could easily find spots to host Media Row.
Well, yeah, but usually when you're talking about these stadiums, the exhibition center is like next door.
Yeah.
Right. As opposed to, oh, let's go cross town to, our convention center.
I mean, unless you're Mall of America Field in Minneapolis, where everything was done at the Mall of America, because where that stadium is located, there's nothing there. It is literally a stadium and not even a parking lot. It's a half-ass parking lot, a stadium, and nothing. So
Right.
put everything
But you don't have to go outside, except to cross the street. You can get all the way to that one spot, and then you got to go outside to go across the street to get to that stadium. But there's a piece of me that kind of agrees with Robert here that every city should get a chance. The problem is that
one city can't, and I can tell you flat out, one city can't. Two cities, I think, can't.
Well, you can't have it. You can't have it in New England. Again, way too cold. Can't have it at Lambeau. Too cold.
That's one of them is Lambeau because of the cold, but also because Lambeau is in a residential neighborhood. There is no room to build the hotels that you would need to host these people for a Super Bowl. There's literally I'm still trying to figure out how they're going to do this for the draft next year, because they don't physically have enough space to put in enough hotels to host all these people for the draft. They just don't. It's a residential neighborhood where that stadium is built.
Right.
And I've already looked at it. My theory is that every hotel from basically 45 to 60 miles away from Lambeau Field, I think, is going to be full, because that's literally the only spot where people are going to be able to stay, because there's like 5 or 6 hotels in Green Bay. That's it. Once those are full, you're going to start going to Appleton, Oshkosh, every other which way to fill that place up.
So basically what you're saying is I need to go rent a car and drive Uber the rest of the time that I'm not actually trying to do media shit.
And then the other city that I don't think, I thought New England I kind of had on my list, but given that it's close to Boston, I thought they could make it work just because it's close to Boston. But the other city that I don't think would ever be able to host a Super Bowl is Buffalo. Knowing how some of those winter playoff games are with the snow and kind of the same.
I don't know. They gave it to MetLife, and it just happened to be one of the sunny days.
Yeah, but MetLife is close to New York City, though. Like, a lot of your hotels you could use as New York City to stay. Like, Buffalo is kind of the same thing as Lambeau, where it's in Orchard Park. It's like a neighborhood. It's not like an actual city. They don't have many hotels. They don't have any amenities really outside of the city of Buffalo. And then, I mean, what are you going to do? Have people stay in Toronto if you're not staying in Buffalo? Those, I think, would be the only two cities that I don't think could ever even put in to host a Super Bowl, just because they're not actually built in a city. They're built in like a suburb that doesn't have like the amenities that you need to host that Super Bowl.
Yeah. No, and I agree with Rob here. You'll see a lot of people Airbnb their house and just leave town.
For what, Lambeau next year?
Probably. Yeah.
$175,000 a week to stay in the houses right now. They already have them up on Vrbo. They already have them up on Airbnb. If you want to rent out one of those houses and cross the street from Lambeau, $175,000 a week.
That's insane.
And trust me, they will probably be sold out within days once those things are all posted, because they're always sold out on Sundays for like the Packer games, because usually they're, I think, $20,000 or $30,000 per Packer game to host a party at those houses, and they sell out every Sunday.
That is insane.
I'm going to be staying with StatGuy.
And you don't have to pay shit.
Perfect. That's exactly why I'm going up there. Because if I'm not doing that, I'm not staying.
Because the houses in Green Bay, I'm not gonna they're nice. I'm not gonna say they're not, and they just mark up those prices every Sunday because they know people are gonna do it. They know people are gonna have these 20, 30, 40 people house parties when they go there, and the reason why they charge so much is food, drinks, and parking is provided. You park at the house, you use the garage, you use the driveway, you use whatever you want. Whatever they have in the fridge is all yours. Whatever they have for food is all yours. And 9 times out of 10, they hire a chef to cook for you if they have like the room to do it. So you're literally just paying for the house and everything that comes with it.
I mean, that's still insane money to me, but sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care that it's insane money. I'm not paying it.
No, that's what I mean. Like, I'm not. There's no scenario where I'm doing that. Even if I had crazy money, I still don't see myself doing that.
Exactly. Well, Anyways, we're at the top of the hour. We're going to go on our station identification, and we will be back momentarily to talk about the rest of football that we want to talk about. Plus, there were some other sports that happened this weekend that we should probably mention once or twice. So we'll go through that right after these commercial messages. And I think we're going to get a poof from StatGuy.
That's right.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this
Oh, I'm
team.
ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face.
Oh, I'm from Brooklyn.
Hey, guys, any?
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov, a public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Sometimes, all you need to change your life is a sign. A sign that says, "Hank, this is the place you've been looking for." And sometimes that sign is an actual sign that's mounted to a building. One second, I'm looking at a sign. I know what you're thinking, and no, I don't love B-dubs just because I'm a buffalo with wings. Frankly, that's offensive and reductionist. Cause this place, come on. It's like they took beer and made it into a place and then gave that place sports and chicken wings. And the people, Cuba, the best.
Oh! What the is going on, Marty? This isn't a game. This is trivia.
Yeah, this place is kind of like heaven. You know, without needing to get hit by a bus. Let's go, sports bar.
Supporting the needs of our veterans. That's the goal of all of us at Team AmVets. Like Mitch, Carlos, and Kevin from our Welcome Home team that brings furniture to our vets.
We are Team AmVets.
Or Linda from our thrift stores who brings you great bargains every day.
I am Team AmVets.
And John, who picks up your thrift store donations that support California veterans programs.
I am Team AmVets.
Visit our website or a Team AmVets thrift store to donate or shop today.
Join the team!
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
And we are back with the second hour of Coast to Coast. And like I said, we did lose Stat Guy and no Jay today. Maybe Stat Guy will be back. Maybe he won't.
Never can tell.
But we do have some news. Let's start with the NBA, since everybody wants to go that way. First and foremost, I will go as far as to say the Sixers did not do very well. That everybody, it seemed like that there were an awful lot of Knicks fans at the playoffs, and it's been reported on now that what happened is that any ticket that the Sixers had available, they put them on aftermarket places for more money, and Knicks fans bought them because tickets are much more expensive over at Madison Square Garden than they are here.
Sure.
So they put the prices up for
even
these
price
tickets.
gouging as a discount.
Right. So actually, they put the prices up to similar prices that they were at the Garden, and they priced out their own fans, and Knicks fans came down. So there was a tremendous amount of Knicks fans at the stadium or at the arena, and obviously I wasn't there because I was doing a charity event. Maybe I should have been there. Maybe it would have been a swing. I doubt it though. But anyways, Sixers lost. You know, and you had a whole bunch of Knicks fans, as nicely as they say, cursing and screaming and carrying on, at the stadium, which is fine. You know what I mean? I don't care. You want to curse and do all that type of stuff and act like a douche, be a douche. You know what I mean? That's what New York is all about, being a douche. Uh, they did win, however. I mean, they're fortunately Sixers just didn't come to play, I guess, in the fourth quarter when things started to fall apart, and now they're down 3 games to 1. So it's going to be a tough battle for the Sixers to come back. Can they come back? Maybe, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
I'm guessing no, right? They're down 3-1. The
Yeah,
odds are not on their side.
no, it's not.
And as much as I kept waiting for the Knicks to do Knicks things, it sure looks like they're going to win this series.
So I don't know. I haven't been listening to sports talk radio, Robert, about this. So I'm not sure. I personally believe that the Sixers aren't going to be able to come back. That the Knicks they're playing full court press the entire game, and the Sixers can't handle it.
And there's blood in the water now, so now they're just coming after them.
Right. You had Brunson scoring 47, I think, yesterday. And he's a little bit of a hack shot. He likes to just throw stuff up, but when it's falling, it's falling.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be able to go. Yeah, and they can call Embiid a dirty player. Truth of the matter is that he's been getting hacked to hell in all of these games. They are beating the hell out of him, and they are not even calling half of it. So
that has been one thing really across the board is they're not blowing a lot of whistles, right? But when they do seem to favor the home team a little bit. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, like that, they're letting them go out and battle.
Well, it's not the battling that's the problem. It's they really are hacking.
No.
There's been a lot of hacking. There's been a lot of hacking that has not been called.
No, and that's been in all the games. So I don't know if that's something the NBA was just like, hey, we're not calling stuff. Too many people have been mad at the officials. We're just going to let them go out and do whatever they want to do. Because I mean, that's kind of what it seems like. Some of these fouls that weren't called, you're just like, okay, like that's a pretty heavy foul, like that.
Well, so anyways, the Sixers may not be in the playoffs much longer. Another team that may not be in the playoffs much longer is the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yep.
That also are down 3-1. Yep. And obviously everybody's hurt on the Bucks, and that's what they're going to blame it on. So
yeah. The Lakers are in the same boat, though. They're down 3-1 also, too, right?
Yes, I believe that the Lakers also did get a win and came, yes, they got one win last game against the Nuggets, so the Nuggets could win at home.
Yeah, the gentleman's sweep, right?
Right.
Okay. And then the Suns are done.
Suns are done. OKC's up 3-0. Here's StatGuy, I think, coming back. Are we just getting the audio version of StatGuy?
Yeah, I'm driving again.
Yeah, the Suns one makes me laugh a little bit because every time Durant tries to build his own super team, it falls apart spectacularly. So I don't know why I find it entertaining, but it's entertaining. Probably because I don't like the let's go build a team as opposed to let's actually like draft and grow teams, the way basketball used to be. And now it's just like, oh, let me go and try and get everybody that's good and be on the same team so we can just like go get a ring. I don't know. I'm not a fan of how that's gone. So when those teams don't do well, you know, you get that little bit of, you know, I'm kind of happy about that.
I guess I'm on the same boat as you with that, but I guess it depends on the situation. Because the one team that I'm happy actually ended up getting a ring that built the team was when the Boston Celtics did it, when they had Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett. Just because you look at the team that Kevin Garnett played for before he got to Boston, he was the only player that basically made Minnesota basketball relevant. And they had that 4-year run with the Timberwolves where they were the top seed in the Western Conference one year, and then the next year they were the 4th seed, then the 4th seed, then they were the 8th seed before failing to miss the playoffs altogether. So he was, I guess, the big reason why they were consistently making the playoffs in Minnesota. But then when they went in full-blown rebuild mode, they basically got rid of everybody but Kevin Garnett. I kind of got to the point where I'm like, I want him to get a ring. Same thing with Ray Allen, being everything that he did with the Milwaukee Bucks and everything before he got to the Celtics, and with Paul Pierce. Those are like the 3 players that have given everything they could give to the franchise they were at previously. And I just wanted them to get a ring. So when they built that team and they ended up winning those championships, I was happy. But then when LeBron James did it in Miami, couldn't stand it because Dwayne Wade already had a ring. Yep. And then you had guys like LeBron James that came close to winning a ring in Cleveland, just needed a little bit more help. Well, instead of staying in Cleveland and trying to get that help, he jumped ship. And in my opinion, failed miserably in Miami because he was the one that said they were going to win 7 championships in Miami, and he only came away with 2. Yep. Then he goes back to the Cleveland, tries to build a team there, gets 1 ring, but again, he only got 1. And now he's built another team in Los Angeles. He's gotten 1 ring in the COVID-shortened season, but when they have to actually play an actual season, the Lakers suck.
Yep.
Hey, they did win the in-season tournament.
They did. Yeah, they got a banner this year. Yeah.
So what, are we comparing banners to rings now? Because if we're doing that, I think the Celtics still have more banners than the Lakers.
I mean, I think they get a ring, too. They probably get a ring. I know they got a trophy, right? So
they got a trophy. They got $500,000 each. Yeah, I mean, that's
LeBron James makes more money than that taking a shit.
I bet you he doesn't. I bet you there's no poop that he takes that is worth $500,000.
I don't know. It depends on how long he's sitting there, right?
I guess so.
If he's sitting there leveling up Candy Crush, you know, maybe it does.
Maybe.
If you can't tell, I have a very high disdain for LeBron James.
No, that's for sure. But I mean, so that's why I laugh about the Durant one, right? Is he's kind of moved around on teams that on paper all should have been monsters, right? Brooklyn should have been a monster. The Suns easily should have been with the 3 that they have. Obviously, he does win a couple of rings with Golden State. The fact that they didn't win in OKC was surprising, right? When you figure the guys that were on that team. So, I mean, you know, now that one actually was kind of built correctly, right?
Yeah.
So that just happened to be 3 stars that just didn't play particularly well together. But yeah, I mean, then you see everything from there and you're just like, okay, yeah, he got a couple of rings with Golden State, but of course, because I mean, he went to a team that set the regular season win record and then won a ring just before that. So it's not like you're like, oh, he helped save that team. It's like, yeah, I mean, you know, he was a nice piece to it. But
maybe that's another reason why I think I'm happy with Durant doing that. I mean, maybe he shouldn't have gone to Golden State, but Durant was kind of on the same wavelength that I always had for Kevin Garnett, where he came close to winning in Oklahoma City. He didn't do it. And then when you saw guys like Russell Westbrook and James Harden all leaving Oklahoma City, it kind of left Durant as the last man standing. So when he left to get a ring, I was happy for him. Maybe he should have did it with a different team, but at least he got that ring. But now it's just the way Kevin Durant is doing it now is just kind of what LeBron James was doing for all the years he did it. You're trying to acquire basically a big 3 everywhere you go. You go to Brooklyn, where James Harden has proven to be a cancer everywhere he goes. Ben Simmons can't decide if he wants to wear street clothes for 82 games or actually show up and play a game. And then you go to Phoenix this year, where you have Bradley Beal, who's been a walking back spasm for the last 3 years, so you knew you weren't going to be able to count on him for long term.
Yep. OKC karma for stealing Sonics. Yeah, I mean, they're doing pretty well in these in postseason play so far.
Yeah, they are.
Who are we talking about? OKC?
Yep.
And Minnesota for that matter.
Yeah.
Phoenix.
Yep.
So, but yeah. So the series set at this point right now are the Celtics are up 2-1 on the Heat. Knicks up 3-1 on the Sixers. The Pacers are up 3-1 on the Bucks, and the Cavaliers and Magic are tied at 2. Clippers and Mavericks are tied at 2.
Yep.
Timberwolves smoke the Suns. The Thunder are smoking the Pelicans, and the Nuggets are really in charge of the Lakers at 3-1.
And the funny
So-
thing is, the two series that I thought would go 7 games are the ones that are tied at 2 right now. Just because
Okay.
Cleveland and Orlando are two very inexperienced playoff teams. Cleveland made it for the first time in 4 years last year. Orlando made the playoffs for the first time since 2015 this year. But if you look at their rosters on paper, they're both assembled pretty much the same way, where they have 3 legitimate bigs that are always on the floor at the same time. They both have a pretty good point guard in Darius Garland and Jalen Suggs in Orlando. They have young pieces like Franz Wagner and Jared Allen, so they're both built the same way. And then you look over at Dallas and Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, that's their big two. Dallas has Luka, and I mean, they're both pretty much built the same way. And then the other matchup's pretty much just a David versus Goliath, in my opinion, even though I am surprised Philly's down 3-1. I thought they would honestly be up 3-1.
Yeah, I thought Philly was going to have a better series than they are for sure. That being
Me
said,
too.
I thought the Suns were at least going to make that series interesting.
Yeah, they blew it. Yeah, the Suns.
Mhm.
And it seems like they weren't even really into those games very much.
No, that's
You know what I mean?
that's what I mean. Is I thought they were at least going to make it interesting, but they really just didn't. Like there was nothing.
Yeah, even the closest game was the last game, but 6 points. But it
And that
was
was
like
even that close either. It was 13 points with 4 minutes left, and I think that Minnesota took the foot off the guys.
yeah, 25, 12, 17, and 6. Yeah.
So if it's a best of 45, it was trending the right direction.
Yeah, maybe. If they had to get the first one, which they didn't get. So same thing with OKC. OKC had the toughest challenge in the first game, and now they are. Let's see, it was 32 points and 21 points.
Oof.
Yeah, that tells me that's no bueno for them.
Yeah, they're not coming back.
So kind of going off of this, in your opinion, out of the teams that are on the verge of getting eliminated, basically like the Lakers, the Pelicans, the Sixers, and the Bucks, because I think the Bucks are going to be done after Game 5 anyways, which one of these teams do you feel are the most likely to try to blow it up and start over? Because a lot of these teams have been in this position now for the last, 3-4 years, where you're winning 55 games during the regular season, you're having a top 2 seed, but then you have an early playoff exit, and it's not only a playoff exit, it's pretty much getting your heads curb stomped in the process.
The Pelicans. Zion, without Zion, they're nothing.
Yeah.
So they're the only ones that I feel like have to really make a stand.
They were second on my list.
I think
the Suns could be, but you're talking the Lake. You're only talking the teams that could be knocked out.
Yeah.
The Bucks could
That's
be that.
the one. That's the one that's top on my list for a couple of reasons. Mainly because Doc Rivers, I don't think, is the answer in Milwaukee.
he's clearly not the answer.
Damian Lillard has definitely taken a step back this year, because this was the first time that he was actually playing with a player that was better than him. And I don't think he knows how to adjust to that, because when he was in Portland, The offense ran through him. He did everything. He distributed. He took the shots. You wanted him to take the shots, and he did everything else. Versus now Milwaukee, he's the secondary scoring option. That offense goes through Giannis, and when Giannis is hurt, that's when Damian Lillard has to step up. And there were times during the regular season when he did that, but just not consistently enough.
Right.
And you've heard Giannis's comments the last couple off seasons. I'm not going to be surprised if Giannis wants out. Giannis was not really happy with the situation last year in Milwaukee. He was pissed off beyond belief when they fired Mike Budenholzer. Like, Giannis is not somebody that you typically hear kind of show his emotions. He gets upset kind of in the game, but like post-game press conferences and things like that, he's not really one of those players that kind of expresses his emotions. But when Mike Budenholzer got fired, that was the most pissed off I've ever seen Giannis. Like, he stormed out of the press conference. He refused to even answer some of the reporters' questions. He basically said, we've had a coach here for 4 years that gave us the best record in the league 3 of the 4 years. He won a championship. And now because we had an early playoff exit because his brother was killed in a drunk driver accident in Game 3 of the first round, we're going to fire him. And he did not want Adrian Griffin. He wanted Mark Jackson as the head coach, but for some reason the owner wanted Adrian Griffin. So, like, the last 2 years, whatever good relationship that Giannis had with the Bucks is slowly diminishing. So it's not going to surprise me at all if it gets to the point this offseason where Giannis is, what are we doing here? What is our plan? And if we don't have a plan, I don't want to be here.
Well, and if we've seen anything from the NBA, if a star wants to leave, it doesn't matter what the contract looks like, they get out.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and if that would be the case, I wouldn't mind him going to Philly.
And I'm not going to be surprised if he goes to Philly, Miami, Los Angeles, Chicago, any team that's got a big market, because that's always something that's kind of, it's not really a rumor, but it's always been something that's been thrown out there that Giannis has always wanted to play in a big market. Well, if he says that he wants out and basically wants to go somewhere else, every big market in the NBA is going to be calling Giannis. So he will have basically everybody at his disposal to pick and choose where he wants to go.
Yeah.
And there might only be one move, but if Milwaukee loses Giannis, they might as well start over because they don't have any other options.
Yes. Yeah, they traded away everybody else.
That's kind of why I put the Bucks as like the top team on my list that might blow it up, because you look at the rest of these teams, it's going to take more than one move to really blow up the team. Like New Orleans, yes, they can get rid of Zion, but they were still a pretty good team when Zion didn't play. So it would take more than just one move to really blow that team up. Same thing with Phoenix. They never really had Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant playing together the whole year. I think they were only together for 37 of the 82 games, and when they were together, they were like 27 and 10. And then the rest of the year, they were like 500 teams, so they weren't terrible, but we don't really know how that team would be without all of them together. Versus when Giannis is off the floor, the Bucks are 15 games under 500.
Yeah, but I mean,
you lose Giannis, you're pretty much in full-blown rebuild mode.
When you think about the Durant assembled teams, though, you look at Brooklyn. On paper, that team looked awesome. They played 12 games together. So, I mean, that just seems to be a Durant type of thing. Now, of course,
and that's the weird part about it too.
If there's any star that's actually listening to our show that's going to use a burner account and yell at us, it would be him, because he does get a little soft and salty.
Giannis,
and that's the weird thing with Durant too, and that's why I think so many teams are willing to give the Durant assembled teams a little bit longer than they should. Is because of what you just said. Every team that Durant tries to assemble, apart from those 2 years at Golden State, they are not together 75% of the time. And they are together 25% of the time. So everyone's looking at that 25% of the games that they play together, and they're like, we would be the number one team in the league if we had our full big three for the whole year. So let's ride it out one more year and see what happens. That's why when it comes to that, it's like, so many of those teams are afraid to blow it up, knowing how good they played when those three guys were on the court together. It's just a matter of how many games can you get those three guys together.
If you get them for 25 or less games, what's the point?
Exactly. I know I agree with you, but I'm just saying, like, that's how, like, the GMs and how these owners think when Durant assembles these teams, because they know the type of scorer Durant is. Sure. They know the type of players that Durant is bringing in to create these big three. They know the type of players that these players have been on, like, past teams when they've been 100% healthy. So they're putting all their stock in these guys playing together, that when injuries happen, they don't really have that plan B. So instead of you going as a full-blown rebuild, it's like, we can't really control injuries. We were injured last year. Let's try to ride it out one more year, and then it happens again, and then you get the same mindset. Well, we were injured again. Let's try to ride it out again.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you watched that happen even with, Golden State. It's
yep, exactly.
Okay, it worked the first two, and then then people were getting hurt. And yep. I mean, after that second ring, it's never worked, no matter what team it is.
That I 100% agree, and I think the two teams that would blow it up are Phoenix and Milwaukee, but I just think at this point, Milwaukee's most likely just because of the Giannis situation. I don't see Phoenix doing it for one more year. If they go into next season and the injuries start happening again and they fail early in the playoffs again, then I could definitely see being blown up after next year.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I could see them trying one more year in Phoenix for sure. I don't think it'll be fruitful, but I can see where they would want to. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the Bucks end up blowing it up.
Yeah, I think that they don't really have a choice. It's like they're stuck, and then their coach sucks too.
And the funny thing is, what people don't realize, and I'm pretty sure you guys do because you watch a lot of basketball as it is, the Bucks had a better record with Adrian Griffin as their coach.
Yes,
they were the number one seed in the East. Well, yep. Number two seed in the East. They were like one game behind Boston when Adrian Griffin was their coach, and all of a sudden they lose 3 games in a row. 2 of them came in overtime, and the other one came on a half-court shot by Jason Tatum to fall 3 games out of first, and all of a sudden the next day Adrian Griffin gets fired. So something happened in 3 losses where they lost by like a total of 5 points, where the front office said, well, you just lost 3 games by 3 points or less, so we're going to fire you. And since they've gotten Doc Rivers, he's
it sounded like there was some issues in between him and ownership, not necessarily with the team. So it sounded like it was a personality conflict. The thing is it's tough to want to blow something up when it works. I mean, anytime you've seen like Harbaugh get fired, it's because the team starts to struggle. When he's playing well, wins cure all. So it was so weird to see a 750 win percentage have your coach get fired. Like, that makes zero sense.
Same thing with Budenholzer. Budenholzer had a 686 winning percentage with the Milwaukee Bucks. And if you look at Budenholzer's career track record, he has the 4th highest winning percentage in NBA history during the regular season. Yeah. But yet the Bucks felt it was a good idea to fire him because he lost in the first round to the Miami Heat last year because Mike Budenholzer's brother got killed in a car accident during Game 3 of the NBA playoffs. Well, I'm pretty sure as a head coach, my mind wouldn't be on coaching at that point.
Yeah, I could see how you get distracted. It seems fair.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because the Bucks were up 2-1 when his brother died, and ended up losing 4-2.
Yeah, I can see that mess it up.
So you think Doc Rivers gets fired after this year?
I mean, he's 20-28 since he took over. So they're 8 games under 500.
3/4 of their games.
Yeah, so they went from being on a 59-60 win pace when Adrian Griffin was the coach to now, if Doc Rivers was the head coach, they'd be on a 36 win pace. So, I mean, Doc Rivers is another guy. I think he's like 7th or 8th all time when it comes to regular season winning percentage. So for the most part, he's been able to win a crap ton of games during the regular season.
But he's the best at losing 3-1 leads in the playoffs.
Yep. And his playoff winning percentage is only .425. So he's not even that good of a playoff coach, even when he's not blowing 3-1 leads. He had that one good 3-year run with the Boston Celtics. Outside of that, his playoff resume is terrible.
He only had 1 championship there. That was the only championship. And you mentioned it earlier. Anybody, you could have coached that team.
Yep, exactly. But then the year before Boston, he got the Orlando Magic to the NBA Finals when they lost to the Lakers when he had Dwight Howard. And then the next year he goes to Boston and they win it And then the next year, Boston got back to the NBA Finals and they lost. But that 3-year run was the only playoff success that Doc Rivers had. Outside of that, it's always first round or second round exits, and it's usually like a blown 3-1 lead at some point, and even the first round is always
Even in that
usually
finals,
6 games.
even in that finals was a 3-1 lead and they
Yeah.
lost.
And even when he was like, even when he loses it, even when he wins the first round series, like even when he's the number 1 seed when he was back in Philadelphia, it was like a 4-2 first round. It's like you should have swept this team. It should not have anymore been 4-2.
Yeah. So yeah, not a fan. Switching over to the, taking the court off of the ice, we have the hockey playoffs where the Rangers swept the Capitals. It wasn't even close. The Hurricanes are crushing the Islanders. A biggest surprise is that the Panthers are smoking the Lightning. I thought that would be a closer series. I mean, let's face it, it's 3-2, 3-2, 5-3, and then Tampa won the last game 6-3. But I mean, they're all relatively close games. But the fact that Florida is up 3-1 is a surprise to me. The biggest non-surprise is that the Bruins are beating the Maple Leafs because the Maple Leafs are in the playoffs. And what happens when the Maple Leafs are in the playoffs? They lose.
It's because it's the Leafs. Absolutely.
They forget how to play hockey in the playoffs.
Right. So I expect Boston to finish that out. The other non-surprise, it was the 1 versus the 8 seed, the Dallas Stars versus the Vegas Golden Knights, where it sounds like it should be the Vegas Golden Knights being the 1 seed and the Stars being the 8 seed. But no, that's not how this one works. This is where the 8 seed is actually the Vegas Golden Knights because they have taken the pages out of the Lightning book so that they had everybody injured and then traded for a whole bunch of, different guys and then said, okay, once the playoffs hit, everybody's healthy.
Yep. I mean, you could say that it's playoff Vegas and playoff Florida because Florida did the same thing last year. They limped into the playoffs as the 8 seed last year, and they ended up going as far as they did because all of a sudden the playoffs started and they flipped the switch.
Right. Well, it's not the switch that I'm worried about. It's the amount of players that all of a sudden were on the injured reserve list that are now off.
Right.
That's the big deal.
Well, yeah.
I think the hockey is the only sport that does that too, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, where the cap doesn't matter anymore.
Well, so once you get in the playoffs, the cap itself matters, and that's but it's such a small cap because you can't afford these players. So, the tickets are ridiculous. They're trying to figure it out, but they can't seem to do it because how do you pay 23 people on the same amount of money that you would pay 12 people? Because that's how it works. In basketball, you're paying 12 people, and you get some really high salaries. And then with hockey, you only get one guy who maybe has $10 million a year. Everybody else is around 5 or 6. But going into the Western side, finishing out the Western side, the Canucks are crushing the Predators 3-1. Edmonton Oilers beating the Kings 3-1. And the Jets, this is another series that I thought was going to go the other way. Jets are losing to the Avalanche 3-1. The first game was 7-6, 5-2. Yeah. Winnipeg is goalie forgot how to play the game because Colorado in the first 4 games of this series have scored 6, 5, 6, 5. In the meantime, in game 1, they actually lost after scoring 6 games. It was 7-6. But then now the goalies only let up 2, 2, and 1. So I think that series is just about over as well.
What seed is Edmonton and Vancouver if you're looking at it? I know Vancouver's the 1, but what is Edmonton?
Edmonton is the 2 seed for that division.
So dare I say we have an all-Canadian Western Conference final?
You can't say that yet.
But no, that's my prediction. An all-Canadian Western Conference final with the first Canadian team in the Stanley Cup final since the 90s? or late 2000s when Kellery got in.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it now. I have a feeling Edmonton is going to become the first Canadian Stanley Cup champion this year and however long it's been, mainly because if you look at the Edmonton Oilers season, they were 4-17 at one point this year. And they made one simple switch to the lineup. I can't remember what the switch was, but they moved somebody from the second line defensive pairing to the first line defensive pairing. And since they've made that move, Edmonton has been the best team in the NHL since that 4-17 start. They've gotten the 2 seed in the Western Conference out of it.
I don't think they win. I'm not a big fan. I think that they'll get past the Kings, obviously. They're going to have a really tough series against Colorado. And I think the Vegas Knights are still the team to beat. Until they're beaten, you can't count them out.
I want to see an all-Canadian Western Conference final. I think that'd be freaking nuts. Especially with
the Oilers versus the Canucks.
Yeah, especially with how close in proximity both Edmonton and Vancouver are. They're only like 5 hours apart, 5.5 hours apart.
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, because
that's West Coast to me.
Yeah, because Vancouver's British Columbia, and then Edmonton is Alberta, which is the next province over.
Got you. Well, I think if that was to happen, like I said, I think Vegas beats Vancouver. Vancouver's another one like Toronto. You know, they get to a certain level and then poop. Just my opinion. You know, and I haven't watched as much hockey as I'd like to. Like I said, because there ain't nothing better. I think that's the best playoff action that there is. So, after coming back from Detroit, there were a lot of people that did mention me. They're like, hey, yeah, we saw you, blah, blah, blah. You know, like you're with your video about the Red Wings. I'm like, yeah, and that, yeah, we should have won more games. That's what they
Yes, we
said.
should have. But at the same time, should we have? Because then we would be the ones getting our asses kicked by the Rangers right now instead of the Capitals.
Well, yeah, probably.
So, yes, I'm fine with not making the playoffs this year because I'd rather have a competitive series and not getting my butt kicked.
That doesn't faze me even a little bit. I think we would have given a much better series to the Rangers than
You would have because you play the same style.
the Capitals, yeah. But I knew that the Caps were too old, way too old. The fact that they made it in there, I guess, was enough. But that team's got to blow up. And I was talking to some people from Washington that are hockey fans, and I said I would love, because Washington's not going to get back to a Stanley Cup anytime real soon.
No.
But they're going to have Ovechkin break the record in Washington.
Yep.
If he's able to do that during the middle of the season, I wonder if Washington would trade him to a cup contender. Because I firmly believe if Ovechkin was on the Flyers this year, he'd have scored 50 to 60 goals. No doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
The team he's got around him in Washington is old. They all looked old. And if they're not old, they're big, which makes them a little clumsy and oafy. And that's part of the problem.
And I'm kind of on the same wavelength as you too, where if he does break the record next year, I think he might need 2 years away. Cause I think he's like 60 goals away right now. So he might need
Well,
one
that's what it is. I feel like not next year, the following year.
Yep.
You know, like I said, I think he would have been, if he was on the Flyers at the trade deadline, he'd have been able to jump in right away and would have gotten at least, like I said, he scored 10 goals or 11 goals in the last 3 weeks. Add another 3 weeks, he might have had 30, or he might have had like 40 or 45 goals.
And if he did that, and then you kind of add to where he is now, you're looking at next season only being 47 goals away from the record, as opposed to 60, where he would legitimately have a shot to get that next season.
Correct.
60 at this point in his career is, I'm not going to say impossible because we've seen him go on scoring binges before, but it seems highly unlikely that he would get 60 goals in a season, let alone 50. But if he was around 45 to 47 goals away, I would not put it past him to put together another 40-goal season to break that next year.
Right. And that's, unfortunately, that's not going to happen. It's going to take him 2 seasons. He's going to wind up with about 37, 38 goals next year. And then hopefully he has a good start of the season. Because ultimately, they're not going to trade him if he still has like 5 goals to go at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
He'd have to do it. He'd have to do it before the trade deadline. Because that's the only thing Washington has right now. They have the countdown till he's the highest points scorer in the NHL.
I think wasn't he only like 7 or 8 goals away from becoming the all-time leading scorer for the most goals with one franchise? Because Wayne Gretzky obviously got all of his goals with multiple teams, but I think Alexander Ovechkin's only like 6 or 7 goals away from becoming like the all-time leading scorer for most goals with one franchise. Because is it Bobby Hull that's number 2 all-time?
I don't know. Not on that stat specific.
I think Bobby Hull is number 2 all-time with like 828 goals, and I think Ovechkin's at like 820 or 821, and all of Bobby Hull's goals came with one team. So I think Ovechkin's like less than 10 away from becoming the all-time leader for most goals scored with one team, and then Gretzky would be the next target.
I am checking it out right now. Actually, that's not the case at all.
Who's second all-time goal?
Well, Ovechkin would have it already.
For most
because
goals with
he
all-time with one
scored.
team?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what he got this year then. I knew he hit 2 milestones this year, so that must have been the other milestone that he hit this year.
Nah, it would have had to have been because he's ahead of. I mean, all of his goals scored. I mean, he's at 853 right now, so he's only 41 away.
Also, then he could get it next year then if he's only 41 away.
Right, he could very well get it. But the closest one is Gordie Howe at 801.
Gordie Howe was the one. Okay.
So, and the biggest telltale stat of this is like, you think of all these guys that have these great score, like Wayne Gretzky, the best of all time. He was a plus 520 over his career. That means, for anybody who doesn't know hockey, he was on the ice for goals 520 more times than he was when being scored against. He's got a total, and nobody will ever touch this because even Ovechkin's nowhere close. Yager is probably the closest one to this. 2,857 points. So that means against him had 2,337 goals against. That's a lot. It's a lot of goals.
It's a lot of goals.
But the other ones in the top and the plus and minus, Jaromir Jagr at plus 322. Yari Curry, who played with him at uh, Edmonton, plus 304. Mike Bossy, a plus 380. Where did I see? Where did I see that other one? That was like a surprise to me. Bobby Hull, plus 249. But the worst person on this list, by far, Dino Cicerelli. He had -4. He had 1,170 points scored. Actually, 1,200 points scored exactly, I guess. Is that what that is? Yeah, 1,200 points in total. -4 all time. Good work. Funny. Or Mark Recchi. Mark Recchi, big surprise too. He has an over-under of 0. Patrick Marleau also made -27. These are guys that have scored. Huh?
I said Marlowe.
Marleau, yeah. Patrick Marleau?
I like watching him.
Yeah. Well, he sucked. He actually scored a lot of goals, but gave up a lot of goals too. Ovechkin, with as many points as he has, he's only a plus 45 all time.
Yeah, he's not a very good defender.
So, yeah. But 41 goals away. 41 goals.
And that actually benefits Washington, in my opinion, too, because knowing that theoretically he can get 41 goals in a season, the Capitals' attendance numbers, I think, will draw very well next year because they're all going to be waiting for him to inch closer and closer each game.
Yeah, I see that.
Especially when he gets within like 5, maybe even 10 goals. With, let's just say he's got 10 goals to go with, we'll say 17 games left. Every single one of those 17 games, is going to be a sellout because everyone's going to want to see him get that mark.
Well, like I said, I want him to hit it now in, February, so that the trade deadline comes and he'd be traded away. Because, like I said, I think that the Flyers would be a great spot for him.
Yeah, they would be.
They have the right team in place. He would probably still get a good 16 minutes of ice time a game. You could put him on the second line, and he would make that second line amazing automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with a couple of young kids that are fast.
Even if he's on the ice for like 16 minutes, like you said, if he gets 5 shots per game, that's like 1 shot every 3 minutes, which doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a lot of ice time for Ovechkin. You can pretty much bet that one of those 5 shots is going to find the back of the net.
Well, he averaged now about 18 minutes a game.
Yeah, I think he was averaging like 7 or 8 shots in 18 minutes. So even if he goes down from 18 to 16 minutes, if you can get 5 shots out of him, you can pretty much guarantee that one of those shots is going to find the back of the net.
Most of the time. Sometimes lots of them hit the back of the net. Not as many as they used to, though. But Brad, you have to rewind to go back to the beginning where I gave us an A. We talked about it. We talked about it all morning for the first hour.
Exactly,
So
whole first hour.
Yeah, definitely check it out. I gave us an A. I thought we were great. And I thought that guy who got the video of that first Eagles chant was amazing.
I think realistically, the Eagles had 2 of the top 5 draft picks.
I agree. 2 of the top 10, at the very least. I was very surprised at how it was going. Once we got to pick 14, 15, was amazing how it was like, I'm like, no linebackers, no D backs, or the linebackers, like they said that Vegas was the first one, right? That pulled the linebacker. No, that was a tight end.
No,
That was a tight end.
no,
The
yeah. Technically, Dallas Turner's viewed as a linebacker, but they categorize him as an edge rusher.
guy, yeah.
Same thing with that Jared Versay that went to Jacksonville out of Florida State. He's technically a linebacker, but they categorize him as an edge rusher. So I guess depending on who you ask and how they categorize the actual linebacker position, some might say Dallas Turner was the first one gone at 17, and some might say the one that was taken in the 20s was the first one gone.
Got ya. Well, I know that the first cornerback gone was Quinyon Mitchell, and probably the best, like I said, the best two cornerbacks in the draft. They said at one point that there was a 6% chance that Quinyon would be there at the 22 pick. There was only a 3% chance that Cooper would be there at the 22nd pick.
Yeah.
So that's why I ask. That's how I started this conversation initially. Was he chosen so late because he's white?
I don't think so, because I think it's more so, like I said earlier, I think it's like how a lot of teams, I think, made surprising moves late in the first round to get people that no one really expected to go where they went, which caused other people to fall. But the thing with Cooper DeJean also, he doesn't technically have a set position, because he played 7 games at safety last year for Iowa and 5 games at cornerback. So that could be another reason why he fell too, because some people don't have an actual spot where they think he's going to fit long term. Is he going to be a safety or is he going to be a cornerback?
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, you would think
I think he's listed just as a straight defensive.
I mean, I was like a guy that you have the ability to move around a little bit.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who hit this home run. I didn't hear it.
Yeah, I heard the distance. I don't know who hit it. But yeah, it was an absolute monster shot.
For baseball yesterday?
Well, it was
a couple
500.
days ago, I think.
Yeah, but it was a 503-yard or foot home run.
Are you talking the guy from Florida or the guy from Georgia?
No, this was a guy. He's in the Philly organization, actually.
Oh, okay. There's a guy from the University of Georgia that hit one like 547 like a week ago that hit like the video board at Florida University, like way out in dead center. It was like 547.
Yeah, it was absolute monster blast. Yeah, I think that one was...
Gabriel Rincones hits an estimated 506-foot home run out of Reading. Phillies prospect hits an estimated 506-foot home run.
Damn.
Gabriel Rincones Jr.
I would just want to know what it feels like to hit a ball that far.
Okay.
I mean, that has to absolutely
just the way that feels
off the bat.
Just the way that feels leaving the bat, the sound that it makes. I just want to know what that would feel like to just swing away and have a ball just go that far.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, and by the way, Rob, just so that you know, the Phillies are tied with 3 other teams for the most amount of wins in Major League Baseball. Just wanted to bring that up to you for our pizza debate.
The M's are hanging.
They're in first place in your division, right?
Yeah. And
15 and 13. 2 games over 500. Nothing to sneeze at. And it's still April, so you never know.
Yeah, that is correct.
I tell you, never a dull moment here. That being said, we are my thoughts on. You know what? I can't give you all my thoughts on those 4 guys because we're out of time. You know,
That is
got
true.
5 minutes left on the show, so actually hit me up tomorrow and with that same question, and I will give you a full analysis of what I know about those guys, which is going to fill about a good 30 seconds. But winning that 54%, there you go. Yeah, 15 and 13, right? That's what you guys are, 15 and 13, somewhere around there.
I believe so. Yep.
2
Like
games over
that's like
500.
an 80. That's like an 87, 88 win pace.
That is correct.
That is. I guess I'll promote the Tyler Lockett football camp. Going to happen May 11th. I will be one of the guest coaches for that. How you can register for it if you are here in the Seattle area is tylerlockettcamp.com. And if you put in the promo code football talk, you'll get 10% off your registration.
And there you have it. And all right. Tomorrow.
That's 1st through 8th grade kids.
Gotcha. I am not going to go into that one. Although I would crush in that camp. I'd be smacking these little 8-year-olds down. My ball.
You got to get in the mascot. Do the mascot mascot football. I think that'd be hilarious. I would definitely do that.
I absolutely. And I wouldn't even need to wear the mascot costume. I could just put on my regular football pads and just be like, giving them the whole
just out there trucking little kids.
Exactly. That'd be awesome. So, but anyways, hey, listen, we're at the top of the hour, so we are going to say sayonara for today. We'll be back again tomorrow morning at the same bad time, same bad channel. Definitely, and make sure you find us on Roku because we definitely look better on the big screen.
That's right.
So, yeah. Anything special happening tomorrow? No, I don't think so. Just it'll be the normal us.
That's
Maybe
right.
We'll have Jay. Maybe.
What's the what do we got over under on that?
I'm gonna say it's a pick 'em.
That's fair. I think he shows up. So if it was the entire show, I'm taking the under. If he shows up for half the show, I think you're still right. I think it's still just a pick 'em.
I have it at an hour and 8 minutes. He'll show up with
Just
8 minutes to go. 8 minutes to go before the break.
Okay.
That's where he will. Show up. That's the over under in time.
I got you.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean that feels about right.
Exactly. But everybody, have a great day, and we will see you again tomorrow. Take care.